Hello and thank you for clicking on my channel. My name is A and this is the Real Movie Podcast. And today I'm going to tell you my review about the movie The Batman. If you haven't watched the movie, please do, because I did it so late and I recently watched it. And be aware that there will be spoilers in my review. So yeah, if you haven't watched it, go watch it first because it is really a good movie. So I start with the plot of the movie. In simple words, a killer who introduces himself as the Riddler takes down some of the most important politicians of Gotham, claiming that they are rotten. And Batman, who is still beginning as the masked crusader of Gotham City, tries to capture the Riddler. About the casting of the movie, which I really loved, and I'm going to talk about it later, we have Robert Pattinson as the Batman, Bruce Wayne, Zoe Kravitz as the Catwoman, Selina Kyle, Paul Dano, the Riddler, Collin Farrel as the Penguin, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. Finally, we have Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. The director of this movie is Matt Reeves, who is mostly known for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes, which were the two sequels of the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Oh my goodness, it is so hard to pronounce these words together. And yeah, that's where he was mostly known for before the Batman. And in those two movies, he also worked with Andy Serkis as Caesar. First, I want to say what I liked about the movie. For me, it was a promising Batman Begins. I know it is ironic because Batman Begins is the first movie of Christopher Nolan's trilogy, but for me, this was the major Batman Begins. It was really grounded, simple, with good casting. I mean, if things go well, as they did, we could have, like, for 20 years, we could have every 5 years a good Batman movie with Robert Pattinson as Batman, and we could see his character and his arc grow and be better and better. If he accepts to do this, and if things, work out this way, that would be really good. Because in my opinion, Robert Pattinson does have the potential to be the best Batman. The other reason that I like this movie, that I say it is grounded, is because, in the comics, even the supernatural part of the DC comics, okay, they are for Superman, they are for Green Lantern, they are for the Flash, they are for even Green Arrow sometimes. But Green Arrow, of course, he's more close to the Batman. But, Batman is morely about the grounded, the grim, and the more human part of the DC comics. And the supernatural elements, of course, he has many supernatural villains in his comics. But as his main villain is the Joker, who doesn't have superhuman powers, the Batman doesn't have superhuman powers as well. I mean, in a Superman movie, you can just fill the runtime with a huge fight, with punching people through the buildings and such. But in a Batman movie, you should have great dialogues, great writing. It is a lot more grim and it is a lot more thought, in my opinion. And that's what this movie gave me. This movie gave me good dialogue in a Batman movie. I mean, there were some dialogues which were not good. I mean, for example, just Robert Pattinson just straight up told Alfred that you're not my father. But in overall, the dialogues of this movie were great. Zoe Kravitz did a great job as Catwoman. We had so many Catwoman actresses in the past few years. Michelle Pfeiffer was good, in my opinion, an iconic presence and so many great lines, like "Honey, I'm home." Oh, well, I'm not married, something like this. Anne Hathaway was also good, but the lack of backstory wasted her talent, and that is my opinion, is what is the difference between Anne Hathaway and Zoe Kravitz. And of course, let's not even talk about whatever the hell was going on with Halle Berry. I don't know what made them make that movie. For me, what makes Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman stand out is her backstory. She was a great and major part of the story, if not the most important part of the story. And this fact about Catwoman made her a great companion for the Batman, and her dialogues and actions, they were reasons behind them, and that's what I loved about Catwoman in this movie. For example, I remember Anne Hathaway in Dark Knight Rises, she just gave up Batman and Bane just beat him up like hell. I mean, there were no reason, there were no motives behind what she was doing, and that was the lack of backstory for that Selina Kyle. But Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, she has every reason. She stands her ground, and we could relate to her and we could understand why she's doing something. And I should also mention her petite figure is also a great fit for an actress to play Catwoman. Before talking about the villains of this movie, the Penguin and the Riddler, I want to mention Andy Serkis, who is as great as ever in this movie, and I look forward to see more of him as Alfred because he did a great job. I mean, we were always so lucky about Commissioner Gordon and Alfred. I mean, as Alfred, we had the great Michael Caine, we had Jeremy Irons, and as Commissioner Gordon also we had Gary Oldman and J.K. Simmons. In this movie is not different. We do have a great Alfred and a great Commissioner Gordon. And talking about Commissioner Gordon, Jeffrey Wright was the perfect casting for this role. Jeffrey Wright did a lot of things. I don't know why he's still underrated and he didn't get the recognition he deserves. He gave us a great role in Westworld TV show, and he lent his voice to the Watcher in Marvel's What If, which is still one of the best part of that TV show, that unnecessary TV show, which is in my opinion in general is really poor. But him being the Watcher in that TV show and in this movie playing the Commissioner Gordon is really perfect. Now let's talk about the villains. So the movie tells us this is the second year of Batman being the Batman, and he already is responsible for some baddies to end up in jail. The main villain is the Riddler, played by the underrated Paul Dano. The Riddler starts killing good guys who turn out to be bad guys and important guys, like the mayor, because killing is not Batman's thing or Batman's policy. Then he decides to find this guy and put him in jail. The Riddler's motivation and presence, or lack thereof to be honest, is great and understandable, but at the end he went really classic and tried to kill everyone, which was not good. But in overall, I loved Paul Dano. I love Paul Dano in general. He's a great actor. Like Jeffrey Wright, he's superbly underrated, and he did a great job as playing the Riddler. The Penguin is in this movie as well, and Collin Farrell is great as this role, even with tons of prosthetics. I mean, you watch the movie, you know it's Collin Farrell, but somehow you still want to be sure and check it after the movie to be sure, okay, this was Collin Farrell. The Penguin in this movie is more of a henchman for Carmine Falcone, and he doesn't do a lot of things. And I think we should wait and see what happens in the sequel for this character, and I really look forward to see what will Penguin do in the other movies. And about the things that in this movie that I didn't like, first of all was the out of nowhere kiss shared between Catwoman and Batman. That was really out of nowhere, the first kiss between them. I mean, I really don't know what happened there. It was just all of a sudden I didn't like it. I know this is a small issue, but anyways, the other thing that I didn't like is the runtime of this movie. I mean, 3 hours is a lot, and for a Batman movie with these kind of villains, a 3-hour runtime is a lot. 30 or 40 minutes shorter and it'll still be a great movie. And yeah, the runtime was a problem for me. I mean, I wasn't bored during watching this movie, but anyways, 3 hours is a lot. And the final thing that I have to say about this movie that I didn't like was the villain at the end, the Riddler. I already mentioned this before, but he went crazy and tried to kill everyone. During the movie, his motives, his acts, everything was great and understandable, and they were good. And he tried to punish those who did wrong. But at the end, he went to flood the city. In a grounded movie like this, with great character arcs and a cool story about Batman. And the other thing that I should mention, that I forgot to mention, that in the comics he is the world's most intelligent detective. Yeah, that part was in this movie too. We didn't see it that much in the other movies. But anyways, at the end the villain went full classic, and it was not really the place to do this, in my opinion. That could have ended in another way. But anyway, yeah, it was good. Maybe the controversial comment that I want to say about this movie, that I like this Batman. I like Robert Pattinson as Batman more than Christian Bale. I love the movie more than I love the movies of Christopher Nolan. Of course, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins are all three great Batman movies. But this one is really good, in my opinion, because Batman is the symbolism of the comic books, in my opinion. He inspires hope and fear, and he's really paradoxical. He's really a great superhero. He's the incarnation of a great superhero, and this movie did its best to show this, and I think in a great scale it actually did. My score to this movie is 7.9, which is really close to what IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and such gave this movie. Of course, I'm just a internet guy with a critic out of nowhere, but anyways, I like this movie, and I recommend you to watch it. And yeah, I know it's a bit late. It's been like 3-4 months since this movie is out, or even more. But anyways, that was my thought on this movie. So tell me what you guys think about the Batman, and don't forget to like this podcast and share it with your friends if you liked it. And don't forget also to subscribe to my channel. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.